I'm out here with Zephyr, and I'm having a problem with the fuel system. Let me tell you what's going on. As far as running, still runs good. I mean, he runs fine, but I've been getting a service engine light coming on, and I read my codes, and there are several different codes that are being shown. Some of them are suggesting the injection pump, which is a very expensive part. I'm hoping that's not what it is. I don't think it is. What I'm thinking is either a filter or the lift pump, which is not that bad to replace. Okay, on these diesel engines like this, the 6.5, so the way that these diesel engines fuel system works, you have, of course, your fuel tank. Coming from your fuel tank, you have a line. There's a little, inside the tank, there's a, what they call a sock on the end of the line. It's a screen, fairly fine screen. It's not really a filter, it's more of a pre-filter. And on this one, you know, it sucks the fuel through that, goes into a fuel pump that is on the frame rail. Like, it is like right in this area somewhere on the frame rail. Okay, now where it goes from there is it goes into a filter assembly, and that filter assembly is a water separator and a fuel filter, and it goes through that. That is where you get your actual filtration. Then it comes from that up to the injector pump on the engine, and the injector pump pressurizes the fuel and puts it into whichever cylinder needs it at that time. It goes with the timing of the engine. So somewhere, since the engine runs really good still, I mean, I haven't really noticed. Maybe on high revs you might notice a little bit of a loss. So, you know, I mean, it's kind of like it's starving for fuel if you really get into. I don't really get into it very often because I really don't have to. It runs good enough. But the thing is, this engine will run with just the injector pump running. Problem is, that puts more strain on the injector pump, and it's harder on it. And it makes it harder to start. If it were the sock in the fuel tank, then I would have trouble starting it. Or if it was a fuel filter itself, I would have trouble starting it because it would be actually restricting the fuel from coming from the tank up to the injector pump. I think what's happening is I think the lift pump, which is the fuel pump that is backed by the tank, is getting weak. It can still pump, but not much, I think. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do some troubleshooting and try to figure out if that is my problem. So, let's see if we can figure this out. Okay, a few things you'll need to do this is a fuel pressure tester, which this is a vacuum gauge, but it's also a pressure gauge. The normal pressure that you're going to see on this engine while running is 3 to 4 psi. Right back in here is your test port. Okay, let me take this little cap off. You can see it's got a cap on it there. Okay, let me take the cap off. Okay, there is your little test port. And I have this connection that is just open on the end, and that will go into the end of my vacuum gauge. I got this little attachment. Now, if this was a high pressure system, you wouldn't want to use anything like this because it would blow it apart. This is such a low pressure system before the injector pump. Now after the injection pump, it steps the pressure up considerably. You wouldn't be able to use anything like this. So, all right, now let's put this onto there and we'll do some testing here. Okay, I believe that is on there good. And I'm going to plug this in good and tight. It's mainly for reading vacuum, but I'll tell you why. If you find out your fuel pump itself is bad, this will show you why you need the vacuum portion of it to test this. Don't know how well I'm going to be able to see that from in there, but that's where it's at. Let's get in. I got that diesel heater going. It's good and warm in here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn the key on. Looks like the needle is just barely moving. Got up to what, 1.5? Something like that. Okay, we got about 2 psi, which that fuel pump should put out, like I said, at least over 3 with it running, probably about 6 with it just sitting here. So, let's start this engine. Okay. Now that right there is in vacuum. Alright, so with the engine running, we are pulling a vacuum. Can't really see the reading on it, but it is in the vacuum side of the gauge. So what that's telling me is that the lift pump is not pumping fuel to the injector pump. So right now we don't have any codes, so that's good. But I think we should check and make sure we're getting full power to our pump. And then if we are, then I would say we have a bad lift pump. Let's check the power. Alright, so I've got some cardboard laid down. Had to actually, you might notice this side's up a little higher now. Had to kind of jack it up a little. I've got it supported on a rim and some boards so it's safe. It's not going anywhere. Now I'm going to crawl underneath there and we'll do some measuring to see what's going on. Up here you can see the old fuel pump is right there, and it is awfully rusty looking. I'm betting that fuel pump has been in there for about 21 years. And what I've done, I'm pretty sure that the pump is bad. If not, I can tape these back up. But instead of just taking the leads and putting into here, I actually have them on the wires themselves. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back inside the bus and turn the key on and see if my voltage is 12 volts. Well, that's battery voltage. 10.8. Yeah, that's battery voltage going to it. And okay, so we are getting battery voltage to the pump. And in here, we still have a vacuum on the pump, or on the tester. Still showing vacuum. So, according to that, all we really need to do propose is replace that pump. Alright, so I just decided I was going to jumper over the, you can see how I jumpered the lift pump. You can tell right here. That is the fuel pump relay. All you do, pull the relay out and put a wire between where 87 and 30 are. So I just jumpered it over and it makes the pump run. So the fuel pump, the lift pump, is running right now. Look at that deluge of fuel coming out of that hose. I mean, that's a tidal wave of fuel right there. Yeah, that, I'm saying that the pump is bad. Because that is just a trickle. Here is the replacement fuel pump. This is not like the one that's on there. This is a upgrade. It's a Carter pump, and it's actually made for marine applications. It's a little more dependable. Gives a little more volume, a little bit more pressure, and it should last a lot longer. That way I won't be overworking my injection pump. This one should last me a long time. But the only thing is, got to install it. So, let's get underneath here and see what we got to do to put this in there. Here is the old fuel filter. You can see as soon as I tilt it down, it starts leaking fuel. But you can see the it had a clip on the end of it, and I just unclipped it. And the other end has a let's see if I can show you without leaking it all out. A 19mm here and a 17 here. Every time that it drops down below the level of the tank, it starts running out, which tells me it would siphon my tank dry, so I can't let that happen. Alright. So, what we're going to do, we're going to break this loose right here. Which it broke loose easier than what I thought it would. And I think I can actually take, let's just take this off. I think I can just clean that up and use that and slip my hose over top of it. I've already sprayed it down a little, but I'm going to spray it down again with some PB Blaster. Right here, we got to take this apart. Okay, or something. Oh, well, it come right loose. That's good. It loosened right up. That was kind of unexpected. Okay, so the first option was I decided I was going to put the bracket and the new fuel pump on this side of the frame. And one of the fuel lines is right there. The other one is right up here. So, there is the fuel filter, by the way. So, I just decided, instead of trying to drill through this frame, which I didn't have any bits that would go through the frame, I decided I would go ahead and stitch it on here with the welder. I mean, this part would be a little hard to get out. I guess I could drill that out if I had to, but I could always just grind these out if I had to take this off. But I don't see it interfering with anything under here, and it's up high enough that it should stay out of the way, and it's stronger then, I mean, stronger than it would have been even bolted. So, yeah, I think that's pretty good. These are all filled in, actually. So it's just these three would have been stronger than what the bolts would have originally been. And I got the wire pulled out to it. Now all I gotta do is just loop the fuel lines into it, mount the pump. First off, I'm gonna give this a little paint job because I don't want to leave this uncovered under here because of rust. So let me hit this with paint real quick and I'll get back to you. Okay, now I've got one butt splice on here. I took and I cut the plug off of the old filter, or pump. Looks like a filter. But I cut the plug off the old pump. And I'm splicing it onto the old plug. I'm splicing onto the new pump. And I have heat shrink tubing on it. I'm going to butt splice this one in, put the heat shrink tubing on, plug it in, run my lines, and then we're going to do this a little pressure test and see how it's doing. Get back with you in just a minute. Okay, so, get back a little. It is hooked up. The wires are hooked up into this plug and heat shrunk around the connections to make them waterproof. It already has waterproof connections on the bottom of the pump, which is good. Everything's pretty solidly mounted. I may have to tighten this one up a little bit more. I've got the, well, this is the line going from the tank. You can see where the line comes into it there. Comes down into the pump, back up, and into the filter. So now, what we got to do is we got to prime the system, bleed all the air out, and we'll give it a try and see how our pressure looks. Alright, so what I'm going to try to do, I'm going to take this jumper wire and jump over the connections for the relay over in the fuse box over here. And down here, this is the line for the fuel pressure test. It's running down into just a water bottle. And what I'm going to do, when I jump her with this wire, when I jump her at relay, it'll turn on the fuel pump and run it. And this will get all the air out of the lines. See the bubbles coming out? Once it gets all the air out of the lines, let's see if there's any more bubbles. So I can still see some bubbles coming out down under the fuel. Okay, I'm going to pull the plug on it. I think we got all the air out. Now, I'm going to go turn the key on and see what happens. That's better. Now, we got some pressure. Now, one question. Will it run any better? As you probably remember before, when I would start the engine, it would go into vacuum. Let's see what happens now. Maintaining pressure. Well, alright. That has the fuel pressure holding steady. 3.5, 4 psi. That is because of the pressure regulator. The pump will actually put out more than that, but that is holding 3.5 at 4 psi with the engine running. And with it revving, it's maintaining the pressure. Yeah, it's doing good. Alright, now the only thing left to do, take it for a test drive and try it out. Okay, there we go. I do believe it's got more power. It didn't stumble at all. Usually it would stumble a little bit. Like in between gears, it would have just the slightest of hesitation as it's going into the next gear. It's good just then. Well, I do believe that has our fuel pump problem solved. And that should have the check engine light figured out. I'm getting a lot of glare from the sun here. I'm gonna go get some fuel. Maybe just go take a little drive and see how everything's doing. I guess that's gonna be about it for this video. Appreciate everybody watching, and I'll see y'all on the next one.